Welcome to the LDS Mental Health Podcast. This is a podcast for faithful women who want healing in their relationships, guidance from God, and internal peace. Each week, you'll hear mental health concepts taught through a spiritual lens from me, a licensed clinical mental health counselor, to help you start thinking in a higher and holier way. All right, I'm so excited about this episode. We have Ember Pilate on today. Welcome, Ember.
Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Yes, I am so excited about Ember's niche that she does. She has a podcast and everything, but her niche is helping people help others who have mental health challenges. So I'm super excited. Ember, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Ember Pilate. I'm a life coach, and I help people flourish in their life and relationship, even when they love someone who is struggling with mental health issues. So I am the mom of 5 kids and have been married for 25 years. And I love a lot of people who have struggled with mental health issues. And I myself have struggled with some postpartum depression and a few things like that, just for short periods of my life. So I feel like I have kind of an intimate understanding of what that is like. And then have supported people in my own family who have some real mental health challenges, some which come and go, and some that are going to be lifelong. So a little bit about me. I love to coach and teach and love wearing fun shoes. I play the ukulele, so just some fun things
Yeah,
that way. So that's me. I appreciate you letting
awesome.
me be here. So thank you.
Yes, very cool. And yeah, I absolutely love this niche. I think as a mental health therapist, it's hard sometimes when you're having the person who's already struggling go tell the people how to support them because they're already feeling overwhelmed or exhausted and they're just not sure, or maybe they're just having difficulty communicating in general. And so it's so helpful when other people know how to support in a way that is actually helpful and doesn't cause more stress or anxiety for that person. So I'm excited to chat about this today.
Yeah, I do think it's really needed. And in my own experience and with the clients I work with, it usually plays out that the person who's struggling with mental health challenges there is a lot of support and help, and if they'll and resources
Yeah,
if they'll reach out and
yeah,
utilize those.
yeah,
And the people who are supporting them, there's not as many resources, but they do need some more skills, like some
yeah,
mental and emotional skills, to
yeah,
be able to help and support as they go on this journey together, really,
yeah.
because that it's a journey.
Hmm.
And so that caretaker role, we usually use that word caretaker when we're like caretaking for an aged parent or
Yeah,
something
that's
like
so
that.
true.
But really it applies here too, whether
So
you
much.
have a child or a spouse or even sometimes extended family members. And so that caretaker role is it's a tricky one to
Yeah.
navigate, and there typically aren't very many resources out there. So that's what I am trying to provide. So I know in my own experience, this is my own experience in that role as a caretaker. I just felt like, okay, my loved one is getting the help and the resources they need. And for me to be able to navigate this, I need higher tech resources. I
Yes.
need better mental and emotional resilience skills and to know how to handle situations
Yeah.
in a more positive way in order to support. So it's it's a journey. It's a
Yes.
beautiful and tricky journey, like most of
Yes.
life.
Yeah. Often talk as therapists, we in when we do trainings on burnout and things like that, we talk about that caregiver fatigue
Mhm.
and just it's like pouring from an empty cup, essentially, right? And we do often think about that caregiver fatigue when we're caring for maybe somebody who has dementia or
Mhm.
is not able to care for themselves as they age. But it's so true with mental health that it can really fatigue you in a way that emotionally, physically, spiritually, that maybe you're not expecting as well.
Yes.
And not
And
knowing
that
how to pour back in.
Yes, so true. And that's something that we'll talk about today
Yeah.
too, as one of my tips. Yeah, so I do want to just kind of expand
Yeah.
people's minds that caretaking isn't just about like a parent role or taking
Yeah.
care of an aged parent or someone physically, that
Yeah.
this caretaking mentally and emotionally
Mhm.
really does apply too, even if that's not a term you would
Yeah.
usually say about yourself or use to explain yourself. That's who you are. You're a
Yeah.
caretaker. Hmm.
And maybe you're in that role too. I was just thinking as a ministering sister. Like
Hmm.
you maybe you're assigned to somebody who just got diagnosed or has been struggling with that challenge, or maybe you're in a relief society presidency or your young women's presidency and you're wondering how to support some of your flock, right? That are under your care as well. And so these tips might be really helpful in that realm as well.
Yeah, I hope so too, especially because I find there's people know what to say in that role as you bring up the role of a ministering sister or as a Relief Society presidency member or something. I think we've been kind of trained what to say when someone has experienced a loss
Yeah.
or sometimes, just some of those typical things that we have. And mental health is usually like an awkward silence and a weird look on their face, and so
Yes,
there's
so
a lot to
true. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just that anyway, so
Yeah.
I love that you bring that up, and I hope that the things that I share will be really helpful for immediate family members, and then those that are also in that sphere of influence can know how to best support these caretakers by helping them with some of these things as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully it will be beneficial.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. Ember's bringing three of her top tips for us today. So let's dive in. What's your first tip for supporting somebody who's going through a mental health challenge?
Yeah, so my first tip is to come to acceptance. Now, when I usually throw out this word of acceptance, there's this general, like, oh, that means I'm just resigned to this horrible situation and it will never end. And
Yeah.
that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. So, I would like to just share a quick story about someone who modeled this for me. So, in our family, we had had some major mental health diagnoses, and I was having a really, really hard time with it just because life in our family was looking very, very different than what I had imagined, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I attended a women's conference and we went to this class on mental health and when someone in your family is struggling with mental health. And I sat by this woman, and as we got chatting a little bit before the class and then again after, I realized that her situation was so similar to ours as a family.
Mhm.
And I watched her. She was completely okay with it. She seemed totally at peace with this situation. While I, on the other hand, was just in turmoil and figuring out like I didn't even know how to feel about it. And this was totally different than what I imagined. And that was a big problem in my mind at that
Yeah.
time,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And this dear sister who sat by me in women's conference really helped me to see what acceptance was and what
Mm.
it looked like. And while I didn't totally name it that
Yeah.
day, she modeled that for me so that I could actually find it on my own. And and it was just so beautiful for me to see someone in like our situations were so similar. It was really uncanny and definitely not a coincidence
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
sat near each other that day.
Right.
Um, but she modeled that for me that true acceptance is just acknowledging what is the reality of the situation without so much resistance.
Mm.
And I immediately sensed that from her, the peace that she emanated, even with the challenges that she was facing. And I had not found that yet. So I encourage people to go on a little bit of a journey of acceptance. And this is why, because We put a lot of time, effort, and energy into resisting what is.
A lot of energy. Yes.
A lot of energy.
Yeah, yeah.
If life doesn't turn out the way we thought it would, or if our loved ones are struggling with mental health and we're like just blindsided by it. Um, and what if we were able to put that time, effort, and mental and emotional capacity into acknowledging the reality of the situation without so much resistance? We could actually put that energy toward helping find resources for them and for us and for finding solutions.
Yeah.
It's a lot of expended energy to fight against reality. I love the quote by Byron Katie that says, "When you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time."
Oh, that's awesome.
And that is what I was experiencing.
Yes.
I had so much resistance to the situation. And for me, it sounded like, my loved one shouldn't be experiencing this. This is affecting our whole family. Why is this happening?
Mhm.
This is unbearable. Let's solve this. Do you
Mhm.
do you
A
hear the
grief
resistance?
process. It's a lot of
It
a
is.
grieving process. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
It is. And acceptance is one of those stages of
Yep,
grief, right?
exactly. Yes.
And so you go through all those stages of grief. But I also love the formula that Kristen Neff, the author of
Yes.
Self-Compassion,
I love her.
uses
Yeah.
about suffering. And I think it
Mhm.
really ties into this acceptance piece, is that suffering equals pain times resistance.
Mhm.
So, as human beings in a mortal journey here on earth, pain is inevitable,
Yep,
right?
yep.
We actually cheered, we shouted for joy to be able to feel both joy and pain. We're not
Yeah.
going to escape that,
Right.
right? It's
Right.
part of our earthly experience and helps us recognize the joy. Now, what Kristen is suggesting here is that our suffering is whatever pain we're feeling times our resistance to that, that the pain intensifies, it multiplies into suffering when we can't accept what's happening.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I'm a big proponent of self-compassion, right? Like if you
Yes.
are having those thoughts and that resistance, just it is hard, and give
Mhm.
yourself all the compassion
Yeah.
that you would give a dear friend,
Mhm.
and all of that. But that our pain, it's going to be there. But
Right.
our resistance to it, now that's something that we can do something about and choose to focus our time, effort, and energy on the support, resources, the things that we need, that our loved one needs, that our family needs,
Yeah.
and that acceptance doesn't come overnight. It's a
Yeah.
process,
Mhm.
but just saying this is the situation and that's okay.
Yeah.
And this might look different and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll share just a personal experience. There's
Yeah.
one time when um, in our family, when someone was really, really struggling with mental health issues, um, we just had to find things that worked for us. We didn't want to stop attending church, but attending church and all sitting on one row was not a possibility.
Yeah.
And so we decided that we would try something new, and we would sit on two rows, and we would position this loved one in a certain position where they felt comfortable and safe and not so overstimulated. And at first I was like, I'm sure our ward is like, why is this family taking up two rows? And
Yeah.
why are they always just like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because it
You
was,
wonder. Yeah.
you wonder. And
Mhm.
I just had to come to the acceptance and kind of shed all of that. Like, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks
Right.
about this.
Right. Their
It's,
judgment is none of our business. Yeah.
it's not my business. And it allowed us to keep attending church
Yeah.
and accommodate the needs of that loved one. And so it it can look like a lot of different things,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think acceptance helps us look for those different solutions
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we may need. And it's okay if you don't all sit on the same pew of church, and it's
Right.
okay if that one child or someone can't sit at the dinner table with you. Like, there's
Mhm.
a lot of things
100%.
that
Yeah.
we are are taught that are normal or like most families or you should do. And I think when someone in your family is struggling with some challenges, it's okay to just kind of let those go and be like, okay, what is a
Yeah.
and what's going to work for our family
Yeah.
and what are our values? What do we want to keep doing? And what could that look like? And it's a lot of brainstorming and trying new things. But
Right. Yeah.
that acceptance piece helps you be able to put your mental and emotional energy into
Yeah.
finding those solutions.
Not into the suffering, not
Yeah.
energy into that. I love that. I like to describe acceptance sometimes as the both and that,
Mm,
that when we come to acceptance, we can allow this duality to enter us. We can
yes.
allow the sad and the hurt and the pain and the possibility and the hope and the love at the same time. That's
Yeah.
what acceptance is. I think sometimes people think when they're accepting something that they have to look at something through rose colored glasses, or they have to always see these rainbows, or that they have to see it as a positive in their life. And that's just not true, right? That we can, acceptance is accepting both can be true, that I
Hmm.
don't have to be problem focused on the suffering, right? I don't have to be
Yeah.
singly focused on the suffering, that I can widen my perspective and recognize, yes, this may be painful, this may be hard, and there might be solutions for us. And when we open that up, it opens our creativity to solutions we may not have thought of if we were problem focused on the suffering and the pain with that.
Yeah. I love that. That's a beautiful way to explain it because both do exist.
Yeah, they do. Yep.
And if we're just narrowing our focus on that pain and suffering, then we're not open to
Yeah.
feel all the others. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a beautiful way to describe that.
Yeah.
I know acceptance has been a powerful thing for me and for my family.
Yeah.
And and it's not a resignation to, it's not that you're resigned to this or that it's
Mm-hmm.
just that you're um that you don't do anything about it, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not a
You just like, what
giving
is.
up.
Yeah. And we just
Yeah,
move
it's
on.
not a
Yeah.
giving up. It's not a
Yeah.
giving in.
Yep.
It's just accepting reality so that you can move
Yeah.
forward. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's lots of skills around that. Like, I think
Mhm.
sometimes people think, oh, acceptance is just telling myself to accept it. Like,
Mhm.
you're talking to two clinicians here that are like, there's lots of skills around, there's modalities built around acceptance. Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot to it. We understand that. We understand that but we're saying, what we're saying is really work on those skills to gain the acceptance.
Mhm.
Look for those, reach out for support and help to gain the skills to get to a place of acceptance. It's not just something that you just, and I think it's a process too. I don't think it's like an end point, like I've come to acceptance, right? But there are levels of that because there's acceptance of many different aspects of that. Just like grieving is, we're
Mhm.
not grieving one thing, but we have to come to acceptance with lots of different aspects of a diagnosis in our lives.
Yeah. And don't be alarmed if it kind of goes up and down
Yep,
and,
yep,
and here
yeah,
and there, just like the grief process. It's like you'll
exactly.
come to accept one aspect and then there will be another
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all of that. And that's
yeah,
okay. That's
yeah, yeah.
totally
I
normal.
love that. That's great. Awesome. Okay, so tip number two.
Yeah, so tip number two I have is it will seem obvious at first for part of it and then not for the other. So getting help for your loved one, depending on their if they're an adult or not an adult, like that's a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
But do not forget to get help for yourself if you are a caretaker. And this is where that extended sphere of influence could really be supportive, I think. Just making sure that that person who's taking on that caretaker role, where it's a parent or a spouse or something like that, making sure that they are getting help for themselves too. So as far as getting help for your loved one, I love that on your podcast, I can say be really prayerful about that.
Yeah.
That every journey is different. And of course, ask for recommendations and do your research and things like that. And that we have the power of prayer to guide us in what will be most helpful in your specific situation. Um, the other thing is to realize I think sometimes as people embark on a mental health journey, they want a quick fix and an easy solution. And if you or I could give that to them, I
Yeah,
think we would, right? Like
exactly,
that would
exactly.
be
Yeah,
lovely.
yeah, yeah.
And it's also good to know that this is going to be a journey. It's going to be a process. And it's great to keep kind of that perspective of now we're on this road and we're just going to keep going on this road rather than let's solve this problem and let's fix this. I see a
Mhm.
lot of like
Yeah,
if they can just get the help they need and get fixed and then we'll go back to life
yeah,
as we know it, right? As we
yeah.
knew it.
Yes, trying to go back, always go back. Yep. Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
really, this is just a new path and a new journey to explore
Yep,
and
yep.
to keep that long-term perspective. I love Jeffrey R. Holland's talk about like a broken vessel. I know it was given a long time ago. It's
It's
been what,
still so
20
good.
years?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
still so relevant.
Mhm.
Just about the healing process may happen in this life or the next.
Yeah.
And and recognizing that Jesus is the source of all healing and um, has given we are given lots of resources to help us in this life and that it might not be a quick fix. And I don't say that to discourage people,
Yeah,
but just to take this a new perspective of
yeah.
this is a journey, this is a
Mhm.
path we're walking on now. And while it might not be the path we thought we'd be walking,
Yeah.
this is the path we're walking. And that long-term perspective really, really helps.
Mhm.
So that's kind
Yeah.
of what I have to
Yeah.
say. There's lots
Yeah.
of resources, lots of good therapists, and all
Yeah.
sorts of things for people who are struggling with mental health if they will take advantage of them.
Yeah.
My other thing about finding resources for your loved one is keep going. Even if the first or second or third, maybe even the fifth thing doesn't work or
Yeah.
isn't showing improvement, just keep going, keep
Yeah.
trying because different things work for different people. So don't ever give up.
Yeah.
Just keep seeking and being prayerful about it, and you'll be led, even if one thing you didn't feel like worked per
Yes.
se. I say
Yes.
that in quotes
Yeah.
because
Yep.
it's mental health and it's
Right.
very nuanced. But
Yeah.
didn't if you didn't see the progress that you were hoping for, just keep going. That might be a stepping stone for the next thing.
And it might be a combination of those things too,
Mhm.
right? If you're looking for the one thing,
Mhm.
there really isn't one thing, right? And it may be a combination of a couple different therapists and some medication
Mhm.
and some respite care, different things might be the combination that helps. I had a conversation with a friend the other morning about like it's hard to tell like if this one thing is the thing that's helping, because there's so many things, but if we just keep moving forward with pouring a little bit in from each of those areas, eventually it adds up and it does make a difference.
I love that because it adds up and it's kind of that real comprehensive approach that usually has the best results. So keep going. Don't,
Yes.
try not to be discouraged if you're not seeing the progress that you'd like to see. So, and on the flip side of this, that's help for your loved one.
Yeah.
I brought this up earlier, but that whoever is the caregiver, if you're the support person, you need help too,
Yeah.
and you need higher tech resources. So learning those mental and emotional skills
Yep.
just as important for you. And I know it's hard to fund all the things,
Yep.
especially
Yep.
in mental health,
Yeah.
and it's well worth your time
Mhm.
for the support person, if you're a parent caring for a child, for you to get that help and extra, those extra skills. We
Yeah.
talked about skills. All those skills are so necessary for the support person and the caregiver.
Yeah.
So that is my suggestion
Yeah.
to people who are caring for someone who's struggling with mental
Yeah.
health, and for a ministering sister or a Relief Society presidency member to know that if you have a sister in your ward who has a spouse who's really struggling with mental health issues, that sister needs
Yeah.
help too,
So true.
right?
So true. Yeah. Yeah.
And
To be
to
looking
learn
for
those
that.
skills. Mhm.
Yeah, I
and
think
how they can help in that way. I don't know, like referring them or encouraging them in that way.
yes, yes. It's often hard to say, "Oh, I want to take that time for yourself and to get that help," because I think oftentimes as women we think that takes away from the other person, right? That
Right.
if I invest in myself financially or with time, that I'm taking that from the other person. But what people don't realize is you are giving to this person from a depleted source
Yes.
already, right? They deserve to have you at full capacity,
Mhm.
right? What is that like for them to receive a depleted person helping them, right? And so, how it's really not taking from them, it's really giving more to them when you invest financially or time wise. Or energy wise into giving yourself those high level skills to be able to deal with situations that you haven't trained for, right? Like that you weren't given these skills when you were in school, right?
Right.
And so these are skills that you need to develop for yourself in order to help that person at full capacity.
Mhm. So true. So true. And you're right. Like we're not given a parenting manual, and we're
Right.
certainly not given a manual when someone we love is struggling with mental health. Like
Yep.
these are skills that are essential and can be learned,
Yep.
right? And reaching out to do that is it's a gift to yourself and it's a gift to
Yeah.
your loved one.
It is.
And
It
I
is.
love that you bring up this idea of like trying to give from this depleted place, because that's actually tip number three.
Awesome. Right into it.
Yay.
Yeah.
So tip number three is to, as a caregiver or a support person, to take care of yourself. And I love that you bring up, Nikki, that it may feel selfish at first because you know this loved one, whether it's a spouse or a child or whoever it might be, that they have some intense needs,
Yeah.
right? And there can be this feeling of like it's impossible, like there's no way I can give time to myself too. And and then you're trying to pour from an empty cup and it does not work.
Yep.
It
Yep.
simply doesn't work. So I love that you brought up earlier about caregiver burnout
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
overwhelm. I see that with my clients that they are exhausted,
Mhm.
mind, body, and soul.
Yep.
I wanted to share a quote by Christy Ling. She says, excuse me, caring for your body, mind, and spirit is your greatest and grandest responsibility. It's about listening to the needs of your soul and then honoring them. And I think I'm such a big proponent of self-care. And I know that's a buzzword, and we're taught by the world things that don't actually work.
Right.
I'll just
Right.
like lay
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
out. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Like pampering is not necessarily equal self-care. Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
And while I'm all for some Ben and Jerry's or a good
Right.
bubble bath,
Yep.
that is not true self-care. I love the
Yep.
word you used. That's pampering,
Yeah.
which is
Yep.
great, and do
Yep.
it. That's awesome.
Yep.
But I love in this quote that it's about listening to the needs of our soul, right? And as members of the church, we understand what our soul is. It's
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
mind, body, and
Our
spirit.
spirit. Yep. Exactly.
And so listening to the needs of that is so important.
Yeah.
And then honoring our mind, body, and soul. So I actually you brought up the idea of just trying to give from this depleted place. There's a fountain that's near my house that's like a three-tiered fountain, and then it overflows, and then it actually gives out at the bottom once the top three tiers are full, right? Mind, body, and spirit.
Oh, I love that.
And then you can actually give.
Yeah.
And I do have a free download on my website that is about true self-care and a way that you can commit in the morning how to take care of your mind, your body, and soul in like super small and simple ways. I'm not saying you have to spend like hours
Yeah.
taking care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
But it is important that we take care of all three of those things. So it just reminds me of the premortal life. We were intelligences first. So
Yeah.
it's important to take care of our mind. And then we were spirits. Our spirit
Mm.
is who we have always been. I love when Sherry Dew first said that, it rang powerfully true to me that our spirits are who we have always been. And sometimes with self-care, we know how to take care of our body.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are we taking care of who we always have been,
Yeah.
our spirit?
Right.
And so it's so important to make sure that we're doing small things day in and day out to take care of our mind, our body, and our spirit. So I'm going to give
Mhm.
a couple of ideas in case
Yeah.
people are like, what does that even look like? Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so just a few ideas for caring for your mind as a caregiver, especially. You don't have to like leave your house for hours or anything like that. I want this to be small and simple because
Yeah.
that's how great things come to
Things.
pass.
Yes,
It's a true
exactly.
principle.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it's
Yep.
a true principle that and I love that when that scripture is given, it's Alma teaching his son that he needs to shine the plates.
Yeah.
And here you think about this great record, right? That's preserving the things that we need for our day. And his son is like, and why do I have to shine the plates?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah.
why
Like, do we
am I
really
doing
need to?
this mundane task? And does it
Yes.
really matter?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then this great principle is taught. It's by small and simple things that great things are brought to
Yeah.
pass. And so
Yeah.
I just like to keep that true principle in mind as you think about caring for your mind, your body, and your
Yeah.
spirit. So, some things that you can do to take care of your mind, even just giving yourself permission to read a book for a
Mhm.
few minutes a day, listening to a podcast. We are just like heavenly beings that love to create.
Yeah.
So learning a new skill
Oh,
is
yeah.
important to us, right? Doing something creative. Some people enjoy word games or puzzles. One of my favorite ways to take care of my mind is to practice self-compassion and just
Oh,
taking a moment. And that's truly how you can help take care of your mind and
yeah.
saying, this is really a difficult situation and that's hard.
Yeah.
And I know I'll get through this,
Yeah.
right? With the Lord's help.
Yeah.
Taking a moment to just remind yourself and recalibrate is a great way to take care of your mind. Also, challenging negative thoughts
Yeah.
is a great self-care practice for your mind. And
Yeah.
I know that's not necessarily what we would think of as a self-care practice,
Yeah.
but does that actually take care of your mind?
Hmm.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, right? So those are a couple of ideas for your mind. I think most of us are most familiar with how to take care of our bodies, so we won't spend tons of time here.
Yeah.
But just those hydration, giving up sugary drinks, adding more nourishing foods, more fruits and vegetables, moving our body. Our body is so like our mind, our body, and our spirit are so connected that anytime you take care of one, it's a comprehensive effect, right? So moving your body is so great for your mental health.
Yeah.
Exercise, here's the number one thing I find with my clients that will move the needle the fastest is going to bed earlier, more
Yeah.
sleep.
Sleep is
Sleep,
huge. Yep.
sleep is huge. Um, and then a couple that sometimes we don't think about, our skincare. Sometimes it's like one more thing to do, or I should take care of my skin, or I have to, or oh, I need to do this, right? I love to take just a real intentional moment as I'm washing my face at night
Yeah.
and just think, this is how I take care of me.
Yeah.
I'm taking care of myself in this
Hmm.
way, right? That might
Yeah.
look different for you, but
Yeah.
it's been a powerful practice for me to just say, this is how I'm taking care of my body, my
Hmm.
skin, and it helps. It just helps.
Yeah.
Another
I
thing
love
that we
that.
don't typically think about is caring for our health needs,
Yeah.
getting the screenings or appointments done
Mhm.
that care for our physical body.
Yeah.
It can seem like one more appointment, or I really need to go in for my mammogram, or whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
Whatever that doctor's appointment is or something, that's actually a way that you're taking care of your body.
Or taking your medications the way you
Yes,
need to take them.
yes,
Right? Yeah. Get the
yes.
refills.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's actually a self-care
Yeah.
practice.
Yep,
And you wouldn't
exactly.
think
Yep.
like going to the pharmacy and picking up my medication is my
Yep.
self-care for today,
Yep.
but it really is,
It
right?
is. Yep.
Staying on top of the timing of that and picking them
Yep.
up on time so you're not running out.
Yep. Or making
And
that doctor appointment to get the refill. Like sometimes we just forget that and we're 2 months out and now we're wondering why we're so tired or irritable because we didn't refill our meds. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I hope that gives some people
That's
some
huge. Yeah.
ideas of that self-care really isn't about bubble baths and
Right.
that it
Not
can
the
be
pampering. Yeah.
the things that we're doing and acknowledging that as we go along, like I'm taking
Hmm.
care of this. The other aspect is our spirit. So how do
Yeah.
we have spiritual self-care? I know that's not usually what the world tells us,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Spiritual
Yeah.
self-care.
Yeah.
But as any kind of a spiritual practice
Hmm.
takes care of our spirit. So if that is reading in the scriptures or however you learn best, right?
Taking the
General
sacrament.
conference talks, taking
Yep.
the sacrament, yeah, repenting daily, things
Hmm.
like that. That's actually spiritual self-care. A meditation practice
Hmm.
can be really powerful
Yeah.
we're instructed to be still. And
Yeah.
in our world, that's pretty tricky. We have to be
Yeah.
very intentional about that. And I'm not talking like whenever I say meditation, people think 45 minutes in
Right.
this
Yeah.
certain
Sitting in
position.
silence. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and meditation can be really, really beneficial with like 5 to 11 minutes a
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
It's super beneficial. And that can
Yeah.
look like however you want. You don't have to like do all the things that you think
Yeah.
meditation is. It
Yeah.
can just be a stillness practice, listening, a prayerful practice.
Yes.
Um, I also think things that feed our spirit, doing something you enjoy,
Yeah.
having fun.
Yeah.
And I I learned how to play the ukulele a few years ago. I had never played a musical instrument, and I decided I was going to learn how to play the ukulele. That little instrument has brought so much joy into my life.
Yeah.
And it's portable, and I can bring it to girls' camp. I take it backpacking. I meet with other women every
Yeah.
week in the summer, and we sing and play our ukuleles.
Oh, that's
It is
awesome.
it just has brought so much joy to my spirit and my
Yeah.
soul.
Yeah.
And who knew that something so small
Yeah.
could bring so much joy? So just
I love
doing
that.
something you love. I love it when I see a neighbor in in our neighborhood and she's on rollerblades. She's a grown
Yeah.
woman pushing a stroller and she's on rollerblades. And
Yeah.
why not? Right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
just I think we are that we might have joy.
Yeah.
And so that feeds our spirit. For some of us, it's social time or alone time, depending on whether we're like introverts or extroverts, or if you're like me and you're an ambivert, you need a little bit
Yeah.
of both, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
um, time outside and in nature, I think, is a spiritual self-care practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It connects us with our creator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, but other things like sports, events, music, dancing, instruments. Another way to care for our spirits is fostering relationships.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
spiritual self-care.
Yeah.
And one we don't necessarily talk about a lot. We know the benefits of it, but I totally consider this a spiritual self-care practice, and that is service.
Yeah. That's so true.
Service actually feeds our spirit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does.
Yes.
And so rather than thinking about some of these things as things we have to do or we should do or just one more thing to do, if we can really take a look at it from a truthful lens, and that is, this is how I refill my body, my mind, my soul, and it just takes a few minutes a day.
Yeah.
You don't have to spend a lot of money.
Yep. Yep.
It's the things that really replenish you
Yeah.
in those areas that really, really matter. And as a caregiver and as a support person, that is vital.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is vital.
Yeah.
Because then you get depleted and you're trying to give and you can't, and then there's nothing for you and nothing for them. And
Yeah.
that's a really, really hard place to be in. when you
to
are
give
the
from.
caregiver.
Yeah. Love that. I would love to link that document for people.
Mhm.
So yeah, definitely send that to me. I'll put it in the show notes so everybody can access that. I think that having that all laid out for you, you can mark the ones that you think work for you and
Mhm.
get some ideas. So that's
Yeah,
wonderful.
I've tried to lay it out so that it's really easy and simple to use.
Yeah.
Um, oh, another spiritual self-care practice that I love is from Henry B. Eyring. Do you remember
Mhm.
when he said that he started recording how he had seen God's hand in his life
Yes.
that day?
Yes.
That
Uh-huh.
is a
Yeah.
fantastic spiritual
Yeah.
self-care practice.
Hmm.
And then I think I'll just end with one more because
Yeah.
on this printable download, it has it on there too.
Awesome.
And it's one of the most powerful, I will say that,
Yeah.
in my opinion. And you will totally back me up on
Yeah.
this. I know
Yeah.
you will.
Yeah.
And that is a daily gratitude practice.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So as I have been thinking about gratitude and searching in the scriptures, I found the scripture in Matthew about Mary after she had traveled and given birth to the Savior of the world, right? And she was
Yeah.
young.
Hmm.
And in my heart, I hope she had a midwife or support
Right?
there with
Yes.
her, right?
Yes.
Because of all the things that happened in that day.
Yes.
I have given birth 5 times, and I can't even imagine
Hmm.
giving birth in a stable
Right?
without any
Yes.
help. Like
Right?
anyway,
Exactly.
I just have a dear place in my heart for her. But
Yeah.
the phrase in the scriptures said after all of that had happened, it said, and Mary took these things and all these things and pondered it in her heart.
Mm.
And to me and I don't proclaim to know or understand what Mary was feeling at the time. But as I read that scripture, it just sounded so much like a gratitude.
Mhm.
Because we often think about pondering as in our minds
Yeah.
and feeling in our hearts. And I think the pondering in her heart just seems like a real gratitude expression. And interestingly enough, in Moroni 10, we also get that same phrase.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's right before Moroni's promise, right before he says to pray about the Book of Mormon to know if it's true.
Yeah.
And he specifically tells us to think about how great the Lord has been to us and to his people through the generations, and to ponder it in our hearts.
Mhm.
And I think, yeah, that's what you would be
Yeah.
doing,
Yep.
to um, feel gratitude. And I bring that up because I think he's teaching us a powerful principle there,
Yeah.
and that is that gratitude actually prepares us for revelation.
So true. It does. Yep. Puts you in that line of communication. Yep.
Mhm.
Mm.
So there's a place for you to also put what you're grateful for, and then even more powerfully, why you're grateful for it,
Yep.
and to actually just sit in that gratitude and savor that is a really powerful daily practice that you can do in just a few minutes a day.
Yeah.
So
Love
on
it.
this free printable, on the left-hand side, it's for the morning. How am I going to take care of my mind, body, and soul? And then on the other side is a gratitude practice and a way that you can celebrate what went well that day, or you could do Henry B. Eyring's How You Saw God's Hand in His
Mm.
Life too. But anyway,
Thank
those are some
you.
powerful,
Yeah.
true self-care things,
Yeah.
not what the world teaches us, but what
Right.
our actual soul needs. And I
Yeah.
hope that that is helpful, and it's essential for everyone, and
Yeah.
especially if you are in a caregiver role, that
Yeah.
is going to be really essential, but that you can do it in just a few minutes a day.
Yeah. Love it. These are awesome tips. Thank you so much. I love it. So, just to recap, we have coming to acceptance, getting your self help or getting your loved one help, and then also self care.
Yes.
Love it. Thank you. If people want to learn more from you, hear your podcast, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at I am Ember Pilate. My podcast is Emerge Empowered with Ember Pilate. I just am super grateful to be here and to be a guest. So thanks for having me today.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the LDS Mental Health Podcast. I hope you were able to find ways of healing, guidance, and peace. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend who would love to start thinking in a higher and holier way as well. Or hit that follow button so you don't miss out on any episodes. Also, check out the links in my show notes for other episodes you might like and links for other mental health resources on my website.